And Kevin Hincks, live at the CBOE with the pre-bell playbook, is with me. Look, I mean, we see the CPI print, which rose 0.3% overall, 0.2% excluding food and energy, really showing not much inflation to speak of. Tell me what you thought. When you look at these numbers, what do you say?
Good morning, Nicole. Yeah, the much feared levels of inflation just simply aren't showing up. And there's really good news in terms of shelter. Some of these numbers were kind of surprising because when you look at crude oil futures for the last month, with how much crude oil has sold off, gasoline prices were up 4.1% in this CPI data. You mentioned the headline month over month up 0.3. Headline year over year, 3%. That's better than consensus on both numbers. They were looking for 0.4 and 3.1. Now, core up 0.2, a tenth better than expected. Year over year core up 3%, a tenth better than expected. So all four metrics, a tenth better than the consensus expectations. Now, let's get into the numbers and figure out where it came from. It wasn't from energy, but it was from energy services. Energy was up 1.5%. The gasoline up 4.1%. And energy commodities up 3.8%. That's the surprising part of this report. The good news, energy services down 0.7, electricity down 0.5, and utility pipe gas services down 1.2%. So softening the blow from the overall gas. Now, here's the really good news. Shelter. Shelter up 0.2, owner's equivalent rent up 0.1%. That's the smallest increase since January of 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic. So shelter softening here. How about this? Used cars and trucks down 0.4, new vehicles up 0.2, and motor vehicle insurance down 0.4%. Interesting there, that number has been just going straight up. So after being unchanged in August, motor vehicle insurance down. How about here's one concerning, but in retrospect, airline fares up 2.7% as that continues to recover. So all things considered, the whole package, less inflation than expected. Now the Fed can concentrate solely on the labor market. Rates are coming down, Nicole.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I actually I almost wish we could see them again. Everything, the breakdown, the shelter, the food, the used vehicles. I didn't see anything dramatic one way or the other, right? Right? Was anything, I mean, energy services, we knew oil dropped. Was there anything really dramatic in this?
But gasoline prices went up 4%. I'm not sure how in a month where crude oil prices went down 9% that gasoline and energy are up so significantly. I'm sure there's a timing factor there in how they were measured, but that number surprised me. I thought energy would be lower. Now energy services are lower, but gasoline and energy in that case was actually higher. But here, other numbers. Apparel up 0.7, food up 0.2, with food at home being up 0.3 and away up 0.1. And I think that's everything that jumped out at me from the report. But all things considered, a very benign, soft report that the futures really like and the bond market really likes. So I think this just frees the Fed up to focus on the labor market, Nicole. Inflation, as we see it now, not target, not 2%, but certainly not going up like we thought.
Yeah, understood. You know, I think about Kevin Green. It wasn't long ago. He did a whole report on gasoline being at the lowest levels in a couple of years or something. But I guess there was this jump that, you know, let's talk about the China news. What's the very latest? We have the big meeting that President Trump seems optimistic about his meeting with President Xi. Your thoughts?
Here's what I think. I think next week's going to be an enormous week for the markets, right? You've got a Fed meeting. You've got 5 of the Magnificent 7 names coming out with earnings, and you've got President Trump meeting with Xi Jinping. Now, Scott Bessent, lower level people will be meeting ahead of that, obviously, but Are we setting up for something spectacular or more disappointment when it comes to negotiations between the U.S. and China? My view, it's still a longer process, and this is probably a step along the way. But it looks like that Scott Bessent speaking with the vice premier, they're making progress. We'll see if anything comes of it. But there's so much going on next week. Next week's going to be a gauntlet, Nicole, with earnings, a Fed meeting, and this geopolitics popping up on the screen. So next week, get your rest. We're going to have a lot to do next week.
You're so right. Kevin Hincks, thank you.